What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 420 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week, and I hope you're high on a holiday cheer for today's episode. Like I said, 420 here today. It's probably the only 420 joke, the only 420 pun I'll make here in today's show. I know we have Matt Riddle on NXT now as the shaman for MSK. All the materials right there for you. But anyway, we got a loaded show per usual for you fine folks here today. I apologize for not getting the questions up on time yesterday. Usually I put the questions up on Facebook, gathering Facebook questions there. I forgot. I was out all day yesterday on Twitter too. Usually I put up two questions, one at 6 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Eastern, right before NXT and right after NXT. I'm asking people for questions. And usually I schedule it in advance, which is why it goes up exactly at 6 and exactly at 10. For whatever reason this week, I forgot to schedule it. I was busy Monday. Sunday wasn't too bad, but I was busy Monday. Tuesday, I was out all day. Today's not too bad, which is good. I'm just kind of catching up from yesterday. Tuesday, I was out all day in New York City, actually. I tweeted about this. I put it up on Facebook and Instagram and whatever, but Alexis and I had a great time in the city seeing The Tender Bar, an early screening of that. Before premieres in select theaters, I believe in New York and Los Angeles, this coming Friday on December 17th. Now, obviously, that's the big Spider-Man No Way Home day. That's what I'll be seeing on Friday. I don't typically live in New York City. I live in Connecticut, but I went out of my way to watch the movie yesterday, which was great. And it's actually coming out, I think, nationwide, worldwide, next Wednesday, December 22nd, a week from today, and then coming out for an even more widespread release, I believe on Amazon Prime Video, if I'm not mistaken, in mid-January. Great movie, starred Ben Affleck, Christopher Lloyd, among other people. They can't really go into what the story's about. It's kind of confusing, but it's based on a memoir. Wasn't exactly sure what to expect going in. I just kind of went to, just because I was invited. I might be reviewing the movie, might be talking to someone from the movie. So I got a chance to check that out for that. And it was my first movie screening, so I'm like, yeah, why not check it out? And Alexis and I wanted to go to Bryant Park in the city anyway. We might be back in New York City at the end of the month, but we might not have time then, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to go yesterday, and it worked out perfectly timing-wise, which was great. But yeah, I would implore everyone to check out that movie. Not exactly wrestling-related, I know, but be sure to check that out, even with all the buzz going on around about No Way Home, and rightfully so. That's starting, I think, tomorrow in most theaters, everywhere on Friday. And that's when I'm seeing it on Friday night. I'm trying to stay off of social media and dodge spoilers like it's a fucking landmine. Like Hawkeye, for example, that dropped today. Big episode. I haven't seen it yet. Probably by the time this goes up, I may have. I'm not watching it until a little later on today. But at any rate, though, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Christmas coming up, obviously, most importantly, in my opinion. And that's next Saturday. So a lot to look forward to, a lot to be excited about. And I'm very pumped myself. But at any rate, if you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. I usually put the questions up on Tuesday nights. Like I said, I forgot last night, just didn't have the time to. I wasn't home. But usually when I do, you can just drop them on the comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So speaking of Spider-Man, let's get right into it. No L from YouTube's got 2 Spider-Man questions. Who would you say is the best version of Spider-Man in your opinion? Tobey, Andrew, or Tom? Now, I already answered this a week or two ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago, because I started watching the old movies back earlier this month. I got through 1 and 2 in like the same day. I started 3 the next day, realized they were on Peacock, thinking, okay, now I have more time to watch them, because they were going to be expired by Thursday of that week. Got through half of Spider-Man 3, and then never finished it. And obviously, unsurprisingly, it was the weakest of that trilogy, of the Sam Raimi trilogy, or whoever the director was. But anyway, so I talked about this 2 weeks ago because I had just got done watching those early Spider-Man movies. Again, I've seen them before. I saw them in theaters when they came out 20 years ago. I was 6, 7, 8 years old at that point, but I think I saw all of them in theaters. Definitely 1, I think. Definitely 3. Probably 2. But definitely 1 and 3. But anyway, my answer then and my answer now is still Tobey. I haven't seen the Andrew Garfield ones yet. I want to go back and watch those before Friday. We have 48 hours before it comes out, before I'm seeing it anyway. So I may not have enough time. But Andrew, I didn't see. Of the three, I would probably, even without seeing his movies, I would probably put him at the bottom. I love Tom Holland. I think the better Peter Parker, I said this 2 weeks ago, I'll say it again real briefly. I think Tom Holland is the better Peter Parker, but Tobey Maguire is the better Spider-Man. That is your question, so I'm going with Tobey. The second part of your question said, favorite Spider-Man moments from the movie. Now, you said from the movie and not from the movies, so I don't know if you're talking about the first Spider-Man or all the Spider-Man movies. I don't know. Again, I have only seen the first three of the Sam Raimi trilogy. I have not seen the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which, from what I understand, are not the greatest anyway. I've seen the MCU ones. I saw Spider-Verse. I don't know if I have any favorite particular moments. I enjoyed all the Spider-Man movies. The third one was garbage because the Venom shit, but in contrast to the others. But I loved Far From Home. I loved Homecoming. The Homecoming one, when I saw that in theaters, I loved that one so much. I really enjoyed it. And when they're on the field trip and Spider-Man, saves his classmates from getting killed in that accident or whatever in the building, in the monument of a building or whatever, and they interview the teacher afterward on the news. He's like, we can't lose our students. Never again. And they get like this great close-up of him. And he says it, and like it's obviously meant to be a joke, and they just quickly cut away. And I love him, and I love the gym teacher in that movie. I forget his name. He's a famous comedian, and he was in Daddy's Home. It is a lot of other stuff, but anyway, Hannibal or something like that. I don't remember, but he's really funny too. So yeah, I really enjoyed Homecoming. Far From Home is a good one as well. I enjoy the original trilogy. Again, I don't know if I have a favorite moment. A lot of people say that closing moment, I think from 1 or 2. I think the first one where he's kind of like flipping around from building to building as they close out to the credits, and they got the Nickelback song in the background. I think that's the first one. It might be the second one, but I'm pretty sure it's Spider-Man 1. That's great. Yeah, I just enjoy all the movies. I enjoy them all for the most part. So I'm looking forward to Friday. Joe M. from YouTube, their first question was, who is the stronger legacy in wrestling overall, Matt Hardy or Christian? Their careers have mirrored each other in strange ways, from being the lesser-known member of iconic tag teams in WWE, to being WWE's ECW champion, to reviving their careers in TNA, to being veterans in AEW. Whose career has had, or left, rather, a longer-lasting impact? That's an excellent question. Man, it really is tough to say. And I hate to, not say either one, because I'm a big fan. Both of them are not just, I'm not just a big fan of both. They are literally among two of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I've always been a big fan of like the underdog, the lesser known, whatever, members of tag teams, and Hardy and Christian are among them. Matt Hardy is one of my biggest inspirational icons ever. Christian, one of my favorite wrestlers ever. So it's hard to slight either one. But you kind of mentioned it right there. They've had very similar careers. Those 6 men, the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys, they didn't put tag team wrestling on the map, because tag team wrestling was already great in the 80s and 90s in WWE. But they did put, the hardcore tag team wrestling style on the map in WWE and major promotions. The ladder match definitely for both Hardy and Christian, and the TLC matches, but they were both involved in those. And then you move on to their respective singles careers in WWE. And they both had a lot of success as former United States champions, Intercontinental champions, ECW champion, as you mentioned. Never really getting beyond a certain level, except for Christian in 2011, when he became World Heavyweight Champion twice. Neither reign was all that memorable, obviously. The first one lasted all of 2 days. The second one lasted a month. But he was still World Champion in WWE twice, something that Matt Hardy never was. They had career revivals in TNA. For Christian, that started in 2005 when he went to TNA. Became the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He's a former Impact World Heavyweight Champion as of this year for a few months. Matt Hardy was also the TNA World Heavyweight Champion on 2 different occasions in 2015 and 2016. Did great work over there. With a couple of different characters. He won the World Championship as himself in 2015 at Bound for Glory. But he won it back as Big Money Matt for a couple of months there in early 2016, working with EC3 and Drew McIntyre and people like that. And then it wasn't long after that he became Broken Matt Hardy. And that was like the hottest thing in wrestling for a very long time. Brought that character over to WWE. He and Jeff had a lot of tag team success as Raw Tag Team Champions, later SmackDown Tag Team Champions. I'm probably going to go with Matt. I feel like Matt has had more career revivals, more, memorable characters. Christian's always been consistently Christian. He's always been himself, which isn't a bad thing. Matt Hardy has consistently reinvented himself. And another thing with Christian, too, Christian was world champion in WWE when Matt Hardy never was. But the thing with Christian, too, is that he missed 7 years of his career from 2014 up until now. And he's done a lot of great work this year. He actually, I think, became the first person to have headlined a WWE, AEW, and Impact pay-per-view all in the span of the same calendar year, after being retired from the ring for 7 years. And obviously he wasn't in the main event of WrestleMania, but he was technically in the main event of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view back in January. So that does count. And then Impact, he main evented Bound for Glory, and he main evented All Out with Kenny Omega a few months ago, which was a great match as well. I would say what matches, I think Christian is known for more matches, he probably has a longer lasting impact from an in-ring standpoint. As far as, I don't know, I feel like Matt Hardy, when I hear longer lasting impact, more people I think know, and they all kind of came up in the same era, more people who are not currently fans or have never been fans know the Hardy Boys and know Matt than they do Christian. And that's not the sole factor, but I feel like that is what puts Hardy kind of over Christian in a way. Christian missed 7 years of his career, and in those 7 years, Matt Hardy had a lot of tag team success in TNA. Again, he reinvented himself as Broken Matt Hardy. He did the stuff in Ring of Honor for a little while. Don't want to forget about that. Christian was never in Ring of Honor. Matt Hardy had a great run in Ring of Honor in the mid-2000s, went back in 2017 for a cup of coffee as the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. Matt and Jeff had way more tag team success across various promotions over a longer period of time than Christian did. And that makes them one of the greatest tag teams of all time over Edge and Christian. But not only that, Matt Hardy had longer runs with world championships and other companies. I don't know, I just feel like Christian has probably been better booked than Matt in AEW so far. But they've both had good runs over there, pretty much on the same level. I'm going to give the slight edge to Matt Hardy. Again, more people I feel know who Matt Hardy is. He had bigger time feuds, I feel. Because with Christian in WWE, had better matches, I would say, on the whole on his own. More memorable matches. But beyond that first feud with Edge in the early 2000s, what other major feuds did he have? He had that WrestleMania match with Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 20, but the focal point of that was always Trish and Jericho, not really Christian. And Christian won, I guess, but he never won Money in the Bank. He was involved in the first ever Money in the Bank match, but he didn't win. He left in 2005, and then, he went to TNA, had a lot of great matches over there, some nice feuds, came back to WWE. No real breakout feuds aside from that one with Randy Orton in 2011. Whereas with Matt Hardy, he had the version of himself in the early 2000s. He had that great feud with Edge that is very memorable for the right or wrong reasons. It's up to you to decide that. But he did have that very memorable feud with Edge in 2005. The stuff with Lita, obviously. In 06, 07, he had that great feud with Matt Hardy he is Matt Hardy. That great feud with MVP over the United States Championship on SmackDown in 2007 before finally winning the championship in 2008. Feuded with Jeff and beat Jeff at WrestleMania 25. It was all kind of downhill from there once Jeff left. He didn't really do a lot. He turned heel. I enjoyed the heel run, but it didn't really do a lot for him, and he left in 2010, and his 2010 was just abysmal, so. Yeah, I would probably go with Matt Hardy, though. I would probably go with Matt. More brushes with greatness than Christian, although if you go with Christian, I don't think you would be... I would say Christian is the better wrestler of the two. Matt Hardy's a better character, but because of that, I think he's left a longer impact in my opinion. But again, if you said Christian, I wouldn't disagree with that. Let's see, Joe's second question here. Can you bet the house on Omos having the most eliminations in next year's Royal Rumble? I don't know if I would bet my house on that, but it is a pretty safe bet. He had a very strong showing in that Battle Royal at Survivor Series, winning the whole thing and eliminating more people than I've seen in quite some time. What is the most... what do you have the... Would Omos have the most amount of eliminations of anyone in that match next year? Probably. I'm not going to bet my house on it, but I would probably bet on that. Unless Brock's in the match, which is very possible, and he wins the whole thing. That is very possible. Would he break the record for most eliminations? I don't think so. Could he? Yes, but the record is like fucking 12 or 13. I think that would be ridiculous. if they had Omos break the record for that. But of everyone in the match come January, will he have the most amount of eliminations? Most likely. I would, again, not bet my house on it, but I think that's a pretty safe choice. A pretty safe bet to make. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter Machine. Check out his show on YouTube. Real Honesty with John Ritland does great work. Happy holidays to John. His question was, so Rhea Ripley lost to Queen Zelina in maybe 60 seconds via a distraction and roll-up? Unless this is to turn her heel, why? Is his question. It was fucking dumb, man. I mean, Zelina winning. Listen, Rhea Ripley should not be losing to Zelina. I like Zelina Vega, Queen Zelina, whatever. Very nice person. Had the chance to meet her about a month ago. I think in retrospect, she was probably, I mean, Shayna probably should have won the whole Queens thing and then gone off on a push from there, but they're just not pushing her right now. Zelina's a fine fit for the crown. She's been undefeated since winning the crown. As the queen of the ring, she probably shouldn't be losing. So Queen Zelina beating Rhea, I didn't turn off my TV because of that. Why I almost turned off my TV was because of, A, how it happened, like you said. I guess it's better than her losing clean. But the fact that it happened in 60 seconds made Rhea look like an absolute fucking idiot. And an absolute fucking loser. So, yes, it was dumb. Someone's got to go heel here, whether it's Rhea or Nikki. You can't get them back on the same page and go back after the belts. Give them their rematch, which they aren't owed a rematch because they don't do the automatic rematches anymore, but they'll probably do it anyway. They did it with Natalya and Tamina. They did it with Sheena and Nia. They've done it with every team that has held those titles because they have no other ideas for these champions to do as far as, like there's nothing really else for them to do. So they'll just, come up with random shit and do rematches all the time. But yeah, of the two, I mean, Rhea, people have said, oh yeah, she's a better babyface. Why would you turn her heel? Because she can be a fucking badass again. And I would have her kill Nikki and then go on to face Becky at WrestleMania. I mean, maybe you turn Becky back into a babyface. You could turn Nikki heel too and ditch the whole stupid Nikki Ash bullshit. Would she want to do that? I don't know. She's pretty passionate about that Nikki Ash character. I think it's garbage, but whatever. I mean, it got over for a cup of coffee. Yeah, so I would turn her heel. I mean, she seems like she's selling her frustration, but at the same time, she was the one that was giving Nikki a pep talk and not the other way around before their match on Raw this week. Of the two, I would turn Rhea heel, have her destroy Nikki, and move on. But yeah, that loss on Monday was pretty bad. For someone that, I mean, to me, still feels special to a very small extent, and she can't always be in the Raw Women's title picture, nor should she be. But they haven't done this shit to Bianca Belair. Bianca, even after losing the SmackDown Women's Championship, was not and has not been losing to people like Queen Zelina in 60 seconds. That is pretty fucking bad. You gotta either not do the match at all, or come up with another way to do it, because that was terrible. Don't even do it in that case. John's second question. The ratings for NXT 2.0 keep falling. What are the chances it gets pulled from USA Network and made a Peacock exclusive? I don't know. I don't want to say it's likely. I don't know what the contract looks like there. As many other people have said, I don't think USA Network signed on in 2019 for what we're getting right now on Tuesday nights with NXT 2.0. When they put NXT on the air, and they could have put NXT on the air on USA Network a lot fucking earlier than they did. They even had USA Network NXT one-off specials on USA Network. I remember one very vividly in 2017. They may have done another one a few years before that or around that same time. Why didn't they do it? Why didn't they do it then? Why did they do it in 2019 and not in 2017 or 2016 or in 2018? It's because of AEW. They wanted to combat AEW. They fucking failed. So if that was their sole reason for being on Wednesdays, and the show was hot enough to be on TV at that point, it's not anymore. The ratings are terrible. Why would it still be on TV? It's a developmental show. The show, I mean, I shouldn't go so far as to say every episode is bad. I just watched last night's show, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, it's just a whole lot of nothing. The bottom line is that it wasn't what it was before. NXT has always been a developmental brand, but it did feel for a time like a third brand in comparison to Raw and SmackDown because it was a far better show. It was just a lot more exciting to watch than it is currently. It reminds me a lot of with NXT, actually, 11 years ago. It debuted on Sci-Fi, and it was this big project, and ECW was already on Sci-Fi. But Sci-Fi didn't sign up for the developmental competition show. They signed up for ECW. They signed up for that third brand. NXT 2.0 is not a third brand. It's just not. And what ended up happening was they were on Sci-Fi for 6 months. the ratings were not good, and they bumped it to WWE.com. It's only been on USA Network for 3 months now. I do feel it's inevitable before they bump it back to either the website or probably Peacock. And they won't have as much, like, the show, I feel, I've said this before, isn't awful. But for a show, a 2-hour wrestling program on USA Network, the same fucking network that hosts Raw and SmackDown, or SmackDown used to, now it's on Fox, by that logic, it should be on the same quality. And Raw's pretty bad most weeks, and SmackDown hasn't been a lot better either lately. But it's just not a mainstream program. It's not a main roster show. It's just not. There's a lot of talented people. This current incarnation of NXT is a developmental show. It should not be on television. It should be on Peacock or a streaming service or the website or YouTube or whatever. It is not made for fucking USA Network. That is my biggest problem with it. Because it's not what it used to be, and people will continue to compare it to what it once was if it remains on USA, because it's not a worthwhile 2-hour wrestling program anymore. So yes, I think putting it back on Peacock or the network or whatever would be for the better. Will they do that? I you know what? I will say it's likely. I will, because yeah, the show's doing far better ratings than other shows probably on USA Network, but I mean, how much more though? I mean, NXT's pulling in a couple 100,000. I'm sure Chucky was doing better ratings than that. They can find another show that is doing better ratings than NXT for that channel. I'm sure. I mean, Psych and Monk were doing millions of viewers, and that was years ago. But NXT is literally doing a couple 100,000. I don't know how many viewers the Crisley show is doing. I assume it's doing around that same number, if not a little more. I don't know why that many people would watch. Crisley knows best, but you know, still. So, yeah, I think it is a matter of time before they take a step back and say to themselves, okay, this isn't working. This isn't what USA Network wants. This is not what they're paying all this money for with their commercials and shit. We got to take it off the air. I feel like it will happen at some point. I'm just not sure when. I'm not sure when that contract was signed, whether it was late 2019. I don't know. I mean, they literally just passed the 2-year anniversary of NXT on USA. So they could have, maybe it was a 3-year contract. I don't know. They could have very easily re-signed in September, and then, right after that, that was when they relaunched, and then USA didn't really have much of a choice but to keep it on the air. I don't know, but I guess we'll find out at some point. It might take another year, but I do feel it's going to happen at some point, because this current product is just not fit for television. And not as far as, it's inappropriate, it's just not that good. John's third question, with Dynamite's impending move to TBS, do you think maybe they'll put a tiny bit more emphasis on the women's division? Because the whole one match per show on TNT and a quick skirmish backstage brawl attempt ain't the best way to grow any talents. I would hope, but I'm not getting my hopes up. The hope was that actually with Rampage, they would put more emphasis on the women's division with that. I think that would have more of an effect on the women, getting more time with a third hour, an extra hour of Dynamite essentially, than it would the fact that they're going to TBS. I don't think the fact they're going to TBS or TNT or True TV or whatever the fuck in January is really going to make much of a difference. I will say, though, not the shit on AEW, I will say they've actually done a great job of doing more with their women lately. It's not as much as they could be doing, and I agree. One women's match a show isn't enough for a 2-hour program. They just have a lot of people on their roster, more than they probably should, and they got to let some people go. They have to not get more television time, but they do have to give the women better storylines. And, some of the matches have been great. The tournament's been very well done, I thought, for the TBS Women's Championship. I'm more on board now with the idea of an extra championship in AEW with the women than I was a couple of months ago. I'm still not in love with the idea, because it's not like the main championship gets that much love. I mean, it gets a decent amount of TV time when Britt Baker's holding it, because she's always on the show no matter what. The TBS Championship I'm not overly optimistic about, but we'll see. And they need just deeper storylines. I feel like Tony Khan just isn't the biggest advocate of women's wrestling. Not that Vince McMahon is, but I don't know. Even with WWE, their women's divisions aren't the greatest, but they kind of do some better storylines and make them more of a focal point on their shows and have them headline more episodes of Raw and SmackDown than Dynamite does. Tony Khan just feels like a wrestling fan that grew up in the internet age of wrestling in the mid-2000s and now runs his own wrestling promotion, and he never really gave a shit about the women. Again, he gives more of a shit about the women now than he did 2 years ago, but it's just not where it should be, And Rome wasn't built in a day, but I still feel like they could be doing more with their women and who they have under contract. I forgot we never got the third match between Shida and Deeb until it was announced a week ago. I don't know where they've been in the last month and a half since they had their match at Full Gear, that tag team match. But we're finally getting it tonight on Dynamite, which is great. But, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see where they go with it, with the women's division, and if it improves. It has improved. I do want to give them their props there, but it's not where it should be. And hopefully they can make more of an effort to put more emphasis on the women come 2022, regardless of whether they're on TBS or not. At Kyle Rochelle 19, can the women have their own version of the Intercontinental Championship and have Liv Morgan win that? Because Becky Lynch is going to beat her at day one. No. The women, I mean, I could see AEW having a second women's championship just because they have two shows and they don't have a brand split. So I get it. Not everyone needs a championship. I don't like that idea. The women's, listen, if you wanted to have a secondary women's championship that maybe traveled between the brands as opposed to a tag team title, that would make more sense. The tag team titles make no sense because they don't have enough female teams. They don't care about women's tag team wrestling, and they have enough women to make it work, but I feel like even that requires two people to kind of form a team, and it's a lot more effort to book a women's tag team wrestling division than it does, because every women's roster, for the most part, in any company, there are far less women than there are men. It's not equal. You can argue that they should be equal, but it's just not. In all of these promotions, there are at least 5 or 6 times more men than there are women. So to have a women's tag team division, Impact does a great job of it. They do a very good job, despite not having a million women on their roster. They do have a decent amount, though. AEW could maybe make it work. Not anytime soon. Hopefully not anytime soon. WWE, in theory, could make it work, but they just don't want to. I do think they would do a better job with another women's championship that traveled between both brands that didn't involve tag teams. So I don't mind that idea. I've always poo-pooed it. Only if you get rid of the tag team stuff. You can't have the Raw Women's title, the SmackDown Women's title, the tag titles, and a mid-card championship. It's not that, less titles for the women because, fuck the women's division or whatever. It's more about they don't know how to fucking handle it. Like, a Cruiserweight division title makes sense, but then again, they don't have a Cruiserweight division anymore, so why is it around? These people don't know how to book championships correctly. So if they can't do it in theory, then why would you do it? That's the thing. I wouldn't bring in an Intercontinental title now or a mid-card championship. If you got rid of the tag titles, maybe. Not because women should have less championships, but because this company doesn't know how to book women's... They just don't know how to book any of these championships and make them meaningful. That's the problem. So, either get rid of the tag titles and introduce that, otherwise, don't do it. I still think Liv Morgan can win the championship down the road. She's popular enough. She's gotten good enough. I think she can win the championship. Maybe not at day one, but at some other point down the road. I do feel that. But not everything has to be over a championship. She can go on in the undercard and have a decent program there with like a Doudrop or someone. I think Bianca and Doudrop are having a good feud. I've liked the matches so far. I liked Monday's match. They should be doing more of that, where they have feuds that aren't over championships. So hopefully we get to see more of that in the future. And hopefully Liv remains on TV despite probably losing at day one. My fear is that she loses, fades off into the background, and we don't see her again for another 6 months. That is what I fear, and I hope that doesn't happen. But at least Rhea Ripley, the stuff with Nikki, I just don't give a fuck about. But at least she's been on TV. She hasn't really missed a lot of TV time. She was a tag team champion for a while. She's remained a regular on Raw. She can't always be in the main title picture. But at least she's been on the show. I fear that Liv Morgan, once she loses to Becky twice at day one, which I think might be the right call, that we're not going to see her again. She'll be on main event, or they'll just bring her in to lose to people, and she just won't be a focal point anymore. I hope that doesn't happen, but with this company, it's hard to be too confident about anything. I will say that. Kyle's second question, why did xylee put herself in the Naomi and Sonya Deville feud? It feels like a weird way to debut her. Because she's the protector. They've been saying that in the vignettes. And there's not a hell of a whole lot else for her to be doing on SmackDown. If we're getting Charlotte and Toni for the Women's Championship, Aaliyah sucks. That doesn't leave a lot of women because Natalya and Sonya or Natalya and Shayna are involved in the Sonya feud. If they weren't, you could do Xia and Shayna or something, or Xia and Natalya if Xia Lee's going to be a babyface. But they're all involved in the Sonya and Natalya thing or the Sonya and Naomi thing, or maybe Xia Lee and Sasha, but again, Xia Lee's a babyface. So, or Shotzi, I guess Shotzi, you can't have multiple women's stories on the same show. SmackDown, I remember when they first brought back the brand split in 2016, they would literally have at least three different women's feuds going on concurrently. Like, I remember in early 2017, they had Alexa Bliss and Naomi feuding over the championship. They had Becky Lynch and Mickie James feuding in the undercard. And they were also doing Nikki Bella and Natalya. And I think they had 3 women's matches at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in 2017. And they were all very good feuds and good matches. So you could do that, but again, I don't know if it was a different time or what. They're not going to do that now. But again, she has been hyped up as the protector. Someone's got to stand up for Naomi. I don't know why the fuck Sasha Banks wasn't out there on Friday. But at least xylee came out, and I thought the debut was handled very well. She came across well. It made sense for her to come out and save Naomi. And hopefully the payoff is still to do Naomi and Sonya and not pivot to xylee and Sonya. I do agree with that. Not that you're saying that, but I would say that too. I would say to not pivot to that just yet. They have to give off the payoff to Naomi and Sonya first. And hopefully they will come, ideally day 1. Beyond that, I'm not sure how much longer they can wait. WrestleMania seems like a long way to wait. It's already been going on for 3 months. Another 4 would be fucking ridiculous. Especially if they're not going to give us a reason as to why Sonya doesn't like Naomi in the first place. His next question, can Sasha Banks face Toni Storm? Because their backstage segment made me want to see that feud more than the one with Charlotte Flair. Why is Charlotte still champion at this point? I mean, Charlotte's a big star. Whether you like her or not, she's still very good. Her moonsaults look like shit because she never fucking connects. The execution is fine, but like when she actually goes to connect with a lot of these moves, it looks terrible. Beyond that, though, Charlotte is excellent. She's had a lot of great, fantastic matches over the course of her career. You can't say that she's not good. You also can't say that she's not a big star. Ergo, that's why she's champion. I would hope that it's a placeholder, though. I don't really have much of a desire to see Charlotte all the way until, champion all the way until WrestleMania. I said before, Charlotte really hasn't had a meaningful title reign in a while, but her current title reign is fucking terrible. I mean, honestly, I don't have a major issue with her being champion for a while if she actually helps elevate people, has good matches, and the writing is good. She hasn't elevated Toni at all. She's buried Toni even more 6 feet under. Toni's been made to look like an absolute loser. So the feud has sucked, and I agree. I mean, Charlotte and Toni should be a feud that I want to see, and I did want to see that. But so far, it's been so bad, I wish they would just move on. Sasha and Toni, I agree, is a feud I would like to see, and maybe we still will. I think Sasha's a babyface. To me, she's just unbearable. Honestly, like she's annoying anyway. But see, it's even worse as a babyface when she's not supposed to be annoying. Because she's still acting the same way that she was when she was a heel. Except she's a babyface. It's just weird. She's so fucking obnoxious. But she is great in the ring, and I think her and Toni can have a great feud. I think Sasha as a heel is really in her element in that role. But she turned face for some reason because they didn't have a top babyface on SmackDown, so whatever. But yes, I would far more at this point love to see Sasha versus Toni than I do Storm versus Charlotte, Charlotte Flair at day 1. I think they are going to do the match at day 1, but who cares? I don't think they've announced it yet, but like honestly, who gives a fuck? At this point, even if Toni wins, what's stopping them from putting the belt right back on Charlotte a few weeks later? And then it doesn't benefit Toni whatsoever. So again, I would much rather see Banks and Storm than Storm versus Flair at this point. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, how do you suppose AEW should book Hook? Yes, that rhymes. Going forward. Keep him an attraction. Keep him special. I didn't really get the Hook hype up until Friday. I mean, I'm not on this Hook train. I don't have this guy's face plastered all over my profile in my profile picture, but I will say, as someone watching his in-ring debut, he was very impressive. He had a great showing in there on Friday. You could tell he's Taz's son. He's been training with Taz and people that Taz knows because he has great suplexes. The submission was great. He looked very impressive, and he's in great shape. I don't know how old he is. He looks fucking like he just graduated high school last year, but he looks impressive. So the thing is, though, I don't see Hook going in there and having competitive matches with Lance Archer or Brian Cage. He would get murdered. I mean, yeah, he's impressive and stronger for a guy than he looks, but he's also, 19? He just doesn't have the build of someone that I could really take seriously. But they have all this hype behind him from fans. Capitalize on that by not having him speak. I feel like that would ruin the mystique. No rhyme intended there, but it's pretty cool that I said that. Going off of rhymes, because he said, how should you book Hook? But yeah, don't have him speak. have him wrestle on occasion against opponents he can shine against. People like Fuego del Sol, Marco Stunt at some point, if he ever comes back. And I hope he doesn't, but if he does, that would be a match I would love to see and see Hook just murder the guy. But people like that, you mean, you could do Hook and CM Punk. I don't see Hook beating CM Punk, but I'm talking about people like he could believably go up against. And you could say, oh, what about Rey Mysterio and the Big Show? Rey Mysterio is one of the greatest fucking high flyers of all time. I mean, you could do matches like that, but you're going to go in with it with the idea that it's, with the, expectation that it's a squash. Like, I would never, see Hook up against Big Show and think he was a threat. But thankfully AEW was a smaller roster, so him and Bryan Danielson could probably have a believable match, even though Bryan Danielson's far better than Hook is, obviously. But they can go in there and he can eat some offense from Hook, and it would be believable because they're around the same size. It's not WWE, where in WWE there's a lot bigger people. Like him and Drew would murder him in like 5 minutes. Probably not even. But I hope that he does well. I hope he can continue to improve and get better, gain experience, impress, and he might have a bright future ahead of him. But for day one, as far as that in-ring debut goes, I thought he did well. As far as going forward, book him on occasion, don't have him speak, keep him special. His second question, would you love to see MJF and Eddie Kingston feud? Yeah, I think that could be fun. Obviously, two of the best talkers in the company right now. I feel like it's a ready-made story, too. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't do it like now because MJF is busy with Punk at the moment. But you can have, MJF make fun of Kingston for being like the lower-level class of New York. They're both from New York. So he can say, oh, when I grew up in a mansion in Plainview, Long Island, you were, a loser in the streets of New York or wherever Eddie Kingston's from, I forget. Harlem? I don't remember. Yeah, so you can just do that. So that's very possible. I think that would be a great feud. I think the promos would be great. MJF is the heel, Eddie Kingston is the babyface, and the matches could be good too. So probably not anytime soon. Eddie Kingston needs some more real, meaningful wins before then. He just never wins whenever it matters most. So him against MJF is just a joke at this point from that standpoint. But the promos could be great, and hopefully they hold off on that for a little while longer until it can mean more and Kingston has more credibility behind him. His third question here. Did you notice that Kyle O'Reilly losing in a steel cage match in his last match in NXT is an ironic echo to when he defeated Adam Cole inside the structure in Cole's last NXT match? Yes, I did realize that. You're right. Kyle O'Reilly beat Adam Cole in a 2 out of 3 falls, 3 stages of hell match at TakeOver 36. And that last stage was a steel cage. And he chained him to the stage, or chained him to the cage, stage, cage, rage, whatever, page. And then I think he tapped him out, or he hit his finisher on him and then pinned him, whatever. So, yeah, Adam Cole's final match was inside a steel cage, and so was Kyle O'Reilly's. That's pretty cool. Bobby Fish's wasn't. He lost to Roderick Strong and then got fired, I think, a day or two later, a couple days later. But, with Cole and O'Reilly, I don't think that was done on purpose. I think they just did that. I think they just added the steel cage to the Von Wagner match on Tuesday. Not because, Adam Cole went out this way, so let's have Kyle O'Reilly go out this way. Just because I think it would be a cool, a nice stipulation, a way to hook up, hype up the match and make it feel like a blow-off, even though he just turned on him 2 days earlier, and really use it as an attraction for NXT. I think that's why they did it. I'm not insinuating that you said they did it on purpose, but it kind of worked out the way, and it's pretty cool. At Supersonic X 1991, what are your thoughts on the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie trailer a week ago, and are we getting a Sonic cinematic universe? Yes, I saw the trailer a few days ago. It looks good. I'm probably going to go see it. I'm not the biggest Sonic fan. I don't really care too much about Sonic. I would play some of the games as a kid. I saw the movie. I probably wouldn't have seen it otherwise, but I saw the movie last year because it was the only real movie out on Valentine's Day when Alexis and I went. Was it? Wow, it was last year. It feels like it was a lot longer due to COVID, but in early 2020 on Valentine's Day, we went to go see Sonic, which doesn't exactly sound romantic, but there weren't many other better choices in theaters at that point. So we saw Sonic, and it exceeded my expectations. It was actually a damn good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. As far as the Sonic universe or cinematic universe, no. I think they might bring in more characters from the games and shit to the movies. I don't think there needs to be a Sonic cinematic universe. There doesn't need to be a cinematic universe for everything, but yeah, maybe. But I'll probably see the second one, and the trailer looked look decent, and you can't really go wrong with Jim Carrey either. You don't really see him do much these days. At E138 from Twitter, final question for today's episode, for episode 420, bro. Did you know that Triple H did not support Jeff Hardy winning the WWE Championship in 2008? So he linked me to an article from Inside the Ropes Wrestling. The interview was from Ariel Helwani, and he did an interview with Freddie Prinze Jr. talking about, his time on Creative, and Freddie's done a million interviews over the years, and they're all great. I love Freddie Prinze Jr. I've actually met the guy before, talking to him in person about his time on Creative, and he was great. He does a lot of interviews with Jericho and people like that, talking about Chris Van Vliet, his time in WWE. And he has always said that he was the biggest proponent of Jeff Hardy, the biggest Jeff Hardy fan. He was the one who actually pitched Jeff to win the WWE Championship. What was it, 13 years ago? The anniversary, I think, was yesterday or Monday, the 13th anniversary of when Jeff won the WWE Championship at Armageddon in 2008. And I read the whole, excerpt of what you sent me, the interview from Freddie. And you can read it yourself. You may have already heard it by now, but it was really well done. Triple H, he had basically said in a meeting after Freddie laid out the whole pitch to have Jeff Hardy his chase for the championship, because they realized he was getting over, and Vince was like, all right, let's do it. And Freddie's job was to put together the storyline, and he did, and Vince was on board until Triple H said, can we really trust that guy with the championship? Which, I'm not going to lie to you, is not a completely unreasonable thing to say. I mean, the thing with Triple H is that, he's in a power of prominence on the roster, but he wasn't like a head official at that time. So for him to be saying that, probably the wrong person to be saying it. That's not a stupid thing to ask, because it was 6 months earlier that Jeff Hardy failed a wellness policy, got himself busted, and they had to take him out of the Money in the Bank ladder match, which he was supposed to win. He was supposed to win the thing, and he got himself suspended, and he ended up getting back in the main event picture after that. But it took him a long time. It took him a long time to get back to that point. They had to trust him all over again. He had to earn their trust all over again. So it's not a dumb question. It was probably just coming from the wrong person, because Jeff Hardy winning the championship prevented Triple H from getting it back. Triple H was champion for a long time in 08. He won the title back at Backlash 08, and he held it from there to Survivor Series. So a good 7-month stretch was Triple H champion for. And he lost the belt to Edge at Survivor Series, and Edge was going to probably lose it very quickly. The question was either, does he lose it to Jeff or does he lose it to Triple H? Obviously, he should have lost it to Jeff. Jeff had already failed to become champion on 3 other different occasions in those months alone. He lost the match at Royal Rumble in 08 to Randy Orton, but on SmackDown alone that year, he lost the Unforgiven WWE title scramble match to Triple H. He lost to Triple H in No Mercy, and he lost again to Triple H at Cyber Sunday. So the guy was a fucking loser, but people still loved him. And he was supposed to be in the match at Survivor Series, and in storyline, he was taken out of it because Edge returned and blah, 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 blah. And like Vladimir Kozlov was in the picture at that point, which just wasn't good. So yeah, Jeff needed the win. But Triple H, it sounded like, based on the way that Freddie told the story, he wasn't just saying that out of concern for Jeff or the company. He was saying that to protect his own spot, as he has many other times before. Because after Triple H went in the office and came out, and he was told that they are going with Jeff as champion, he never gave Freddie any props, didn't even bother to look at the guy, Freddie said. So it's very possible that, yes, Triple H was concerned, he was posing a legit question, but he was probably the wrong person to ask that question, or at least without saying, you know what, he might be a risk, but let's still go with it because it's the right thing to do storyline-wise. It sounded like, from the way that Freddie told the story, and maybe it's just his own interpretation, that Triple H was just trying to protect the spot. And Triple H became champion a few months later anyway, because Edge won the championship at the Rumble, and then back from Jeff after Matt Hardy screwed over Jeff, and then Triple H won an Elimination Chamber match the next month. So it didn't end up mattering anyway. At least they gave Jeff his moment, though. That's really all that mattered. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 420 here today of #AskGSM. Thank you, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. For December 15th, 2021. It's been a great week. It's been a great week between being in the city yesterday. We got Hawkeye today. We got Winters coming tonight as well. Very much looking forward to that. And we got No Way Home on Friday for us Marvel fans. We've been looking forward to this for a while. And there's been some good movies this year. You know, Eternals was boring as shit, but I like Shang-Chi. Black Widow was pretty good. I've been waiting for this one. This is obviously the biggest Marvel movie since Endgame 2.5 years ago. So I'm fucking pumped for it. I'm going all out. I hope you guys will as well. I already got my tickets for 7 p.m. on Friday. So I'm pumped. Fucking pumped, brother. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave your question on the post that I usually, keyword usually, I didn't this week, I apologize, usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. Like I said, stay high on holiday cheer. Enjoy the rest of your month of December. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.